Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. I'm Fahima Mohammed, your host and relationship coach. Another warm welcome from all of us here on British Muslim TV to all of you watching and streaming wherever you are, whether it's on Sky Channel 752, Facebook or Twitter. We love having these amazing conversations with really interesting topics each week. And you can obviously participate with your queries and questions and comments. You can call in directly to the studio on 01924231083. Please do ask the bill payer's permission. For standard network rates do apply, but we would love to hear from you. And if you have to call us and message us anonymously, you can do so via our free WhatsApp call. And that is 07585835150. And I will keep you anonymous if you wish for me to do so. However, tonight we have another topic. Does career matter when searching for love? And with me to discuss this really important topic, we have Naila Dean, all the way from Northern California. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. How are you?
I am really, really fine tonight, especially knowing that you're in sunny California. Hopefully you can bring that sunshine to us in the UK. And you already do with that smile. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. Really appreciate it.
I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You know, I really love what you do and I admire you. You are a lawyer by profession, and I find that really, really fascinating and really inspiring. And on top of that, you actually are a relationship writer and so much more. But before I go into it, I would love for you to tell our viewers tonight, all about Naila before we go into the discussion.
Yes. So by day, I'm a lawyer. I work at a nonprofit. And by night, I'm a writer, researching about how young Muslims are finding love and marriage. And I've been doing this work for the last few years. When I was on my quest to find a good Muslim husband myself, alhamdulillah, I just recently got married in this past July, but I know the trials and tribulations that single Muslim women particularly go through when trying to find the right one. And so I kind of used all of my frustrations, all my difficulties, to put them back out into the world through my writing. And eventually the writing kind of inspired a bigger project called the Isms Project, which I've been working on for the last 2 years. I did part 1 and part 2. And it's a photo series and documentary that were published on. You can find them online on my website at nailadeen.com and on YouTube. And it showcases the barriers that Muslim women are facing in trying to get married, is particularly in the US context, but it applies to Muslim women in many different parts of the world. And so that was featured in Newsweek, AJ Plus, The Washington Post, got a lot of different support from women all across the world saying that they identify with these isms that I discussed in the project: sexism, racism, colorism, ableism, and the stigma of divorce, all of these kind of roadblocks to finding a spouse. And so today, from that project, we talked about sexism and how, a woman can be judged by being in a professional career. Some men thinking that maybe she's only right for one thing, and maybe that's outside of the house. Maybe she can't be the ideal wife or mother and also be this doctor, lawyer, engineer. Having had that in the background, I came to this conversation with you, Fahima, today, thinking about how career can help us or hinder us, how thinking about that and can be part of our journey to find love and marriage. And so I'm excited to talk today with you about this idea about how we can think about career as we search for love.
Wow, amazing. Even more inspired by everything that you've just said right now. And you've even answered my next question as to why you wrote about relationships. And again, thank you so much for being with us. And also congratulations on your recent marriage as well. It's absolutely wonderful to have you share that journey with us. I think it's absolutely fascinating that someone of your profession even has taken the time out to go out there and not just have your own challenges, but help people through their struggles by doing this extra work, which I think is really, really amazing, by the way. And it's so needed and so valuable. So as you started off saying that, having a career does create some sort of concern to Muslims, especially nowadays. And men have always had careers and they've always been providers and professional and things like that. So they've always had that opportunity. But for women, it seems to be more and more today. And there's a lot of chat about that, whether or not Muslims should stay this traditional Muslim wife because it's hindering the family home and it's, not creating that sort of like traditional sort of like outlay for children and not being there for their husbands. And obviously there's a variety of case studies. There's a variety of reasons. There's no real right or wrong, but we are finding majority of women today, not just taking on their careers, but they are educating themselves more and more. So that career opportunity is there. And also living in the West, there is more opportunity. So why don't we start off, with one of the first questions is, what is the importance of career for a Muslim woman? I mean, should they actually pursue something like that? And if so, why?
Yeah, so this question about career is definitely a delicate one, because no one wants to be told to do less, right? No one wants to say, be told that all of my years spent studying at XYZ school or in this field, that now I should take a step back to be able to pursue half of my deen and find love. I have to give up everything that I worked so hard just to fit into the category of what someone else thinks of as a suitable of what a suitable wife or mother would look like. I, for one, I think that it shouldn't be an all or nothing sum game. I think that one can have their cake and eat it too. If one person prioritizes their career in one part of their life, maybe they're able to compromise on it at another point in time. So I find it really offensive when men have come to me in the past, or they go to my friends or other people that I'm trying to matchmake, which now that's one of my hobbies since I've married, is matchmaking. So many times I hear from men in particular that I don't do doctors or lawyers. I don't want a woman that is going to work after we get married and have children. And
Why
I
do you
feel
think
like
that
that's
is? Why do you think that is? Why do you think
yeah.
that may be a reason? Do you think it's because men feel that, that women generally won't be able to give in the household? Or do you think they're intimidated by her profession and by her financial ability? What are some of the case studies that you come across? I'm sure it's a selection, but what do you hear more and more of as to the reason why that is?
Yeah, so when I've done matchmaking and and I have all these friends that are doctors or lawyers specifically, very accomplished female friends, and then matching them with someone who is actually as equally matched. Maybe they're an engineer or they're a business professional or whatnot. And they say that one of the reasons is I don't think that she's going to have time for me and my future children if if she has such a high profile career. So that is one of the reasons. In other scenarios, I definitely do see it as a power dynamic. Is she making more money than me? Is she going to be in a more prestigious position than me? How is that going to look in the community? That those are things that are said less often, but they're kind of insinuated based on when they're pushed to give answers on why they don't want someone with XYZ career. Their reasoning it's not it doesn't hold up.
Do you
And
think, though,
so
that a woman that has a career, not just a job, but an actual professional career, does hinder her ability to be that wife and mother in the home?
no, I don't, because like I said, it's about compromise. And so when you have two parties that are coming together to make something as strong, to make a strong marriage, a relationship that's built on many different layers, you have people that are negotiating together for what their schedules are going to look like, what their roles are going to look like. At different times in their life, one person's going to have to step back. That's the reality of the situation today. And so, I think it's not fair for a man to assume that, if she's in one of these, busy professional spaces, that she's, maybe when she has a child, that she's not going to step back. It's unfair to assume that before that conversation happens. So what I tell people is that, why don't you at least consider this person that on paper might seem intimidating for you? Why don't you come to the table and ask them, what's their expectations when they get married? What's their schedule going to look like? What are their lifestyle habits that will allow them to, be a caregiver? What is the other person's schedule too? What are they going to bring to the table in order to make this relationship work? I myself, when I was looking to get married, I would tell people that, like, I was interested in a relationship in which I could potentially do part-time work if I have, inshallah, when I have children. And when I met, my current spouse, he was okay with that. But he actually did, because we live in California, it's such an expensive, state. He did say that, our lifestyle might change. We might have to move if you don't want to work, or you want to work less. We just have to see, depending on our finances, depending on how many children we have. So, these conversations need to happen, and they are important, and expectations need to be set of what that will look like. But it's unfair to write people off completely based on their career before you even come to the table to ask them those questions.
Absolutely. I think it takes a particular man as well to be able to sit down and have those uncomfortable conversations with their potential spouse, so that they can actually clear out all of these things, and it does not take it away completely. And there's no harm in planning in advance to say, well, this is your career. What will be the actual sort of reason for, having children, and then, you take it a step back and you will be the primary caregiver for our children. And how does that sit with you? So yeah, really, really important questions and answers. And obviously we're going to come back, because we are coming into a break, and we're going to continue talking with Nyla all the way from North California. Please do stay with me as we will continue after the break, and we will see you in a few moments. Take care. Salam. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. I think we're addressing a really important topic today, especially in our ever-changing world, especially if you're living in the West. There's a lot of women out there that are highly educated, and they want to take it to the next step with their careers. It's not just a job, it's a career that they are pursuing. And a lot of people, men especially, may find that a bit problematic. Not everyone, but some. They might think that it actually hinders that marriage, because she's not able and capable of holding down this traditional wife role of taking care of her husband as well as the children. And discussing this with my professional, gorgeous, lovely guest tonight, Nyla, all the way from Northern California, who is a lawyer by day and a relationship writer by night, having the challenges that she's faced herself, now addressing these issues to help everybody else. So when you were on this journey, or even just your peers around you, Nyla, when you actually found that there's a lot of, probably I'm sure amongst your peers and colleagues, there's a lot of Muslim women out there who are highly educated and in their careers, do they generally find it more difficult to find a spouse because of that reason? Do you think that it is an actual problem now? Or do you think that men are actually more accepting, and they actually can compromise and think that, okay, even though it's my job to provide and her job to, help, and we can work that role, but when she chooses a career, then it's up to her. If she's tired, she's still got to do her job. And, or do you think there are more compromising men out there, or they just won't choose them because it's like it's too much hard work? She's going to be too much in her career. She's not going to have time for me. What is, your sort of stories, and what do you hear around yourself?
Yeah, so before I get into it, I'll just preface by saying I do believe there are good Muslim men still out there.
Oh,
For all
absolutely.
of yeah, for sure, as much as I make a point of talking about the difficulties that women face, I know that there are still good Muslim men out there, pious Muslim men that are open to considering a Muslim woman who has high degrees and big careers. That being said, I've encountered dozens and dozens of women that share the same difficulties that I went through when finding a spouse. So many times, these women, and myself included, were judged just based on our occupation, not even be able to be given the chance to entertain conversations about marriage because we are too educated. And the isms projects that I did, we focused on that as one of the issues in our part one of our series, sexism, because sexism, the idea being that a woman is only good for one thing or the other. So oftentimes, women are seeking to have multiple roles, be dynamic people, be that mother and wife and career woman, all at the same time, at different moments in her life, but not being given the chance. So we don't have the stats on it. So because in the Muslim research world, marriage is not as highly researched, unfortunately, but the personal encounters and stories that, of women that have reached out, especially after I put out the photo series, they really, they recognized that, and they felt the same way. They commiserated about having been turned down because, someone, maybe even the potential's mother, didn't think that they would be able to juggle multiple roles. And I think it's really unfair. And there's in an Islamic context, like, Islam isn't making us choose. Islam is giving responsibility to certain people at different time, particularly the man for the financial responsibility. But for the wife, there's nothing that I've learned in my journey of trying to understand what Islam says on this, that says a woman is just confined to the role of the home. Celine Ibrahim, she's a dear friend and author. She wrote a great book called Women in the Quran. And it it touches a little bit on this idea about a woman's role through the Quran, and how it's a very dynamic role. And for men in today's modern context to say otherwise, it's really shocking, honestly. Um,
Well,
that
let's
being
just
said,
switch it up a little bit, Nyla, before you move on to your next point. Fine, there might be certain setbacks when men are actually looking for their particular spouse, and they might hold themselves back for whatever reason if she is highly educated and have those careers. Let's move down a little bit, because they might go past that and they might come to some agreement to say, well, fair enough, we can do it. But are women really okay having a career and raising children? Because it is really challenging. And a lot of the times, from my work especially, I do have a lot of career women that do come to me saying it is a struggle, and their husbands would not actually help them out, even if it was agreed at the beginning, because at the end of the day, it's not something that they can manage. So let's just be realistic about it. They do need to sometimes take a step back, and sometimes even lose out on that career, because as much as we say it, or they actually don't play a role as that mother because of their career, and they regret it after the first child, because maybe they were put their kids early into nursery, and having a nanny and things like that, which jeopardizes that sort of bond and connection between the mother and child. And secondly, it does have some sort of impact negatively on the relationship when the wife's constantly tired from trying to manage the career as well as the household, as well as, you know, the family and everything else. And she might actually not manage. Let's be realistic. As much as we can do a lot, but it does and it can take a toll. How realistic is it that women can, at that point, especially at the very beginning of having their families, manage all of that and be okay with the relationship? So are men not just, you know, having that sort of doubt for no reason? Is there a real genuine reason out there from what you see?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have friends that are hardworking mommies, and you know, they're juggling multiple things, and they can't catch a break really. It's really difficult for them. And you know, I watch them trying to navigate both of these worlds. And it appears to be very exhausting. That's why I always kind of say, like, you know, you can have your cake and eat it too. You know, have it all, but at different times, right? So yeah, it is a reality that you might have to step back on your career at some point if you're valuing raising your children in a certain way. You know, if you're able to afford daycare and you're okay with, you know, what you know, how someone else may or may not be, you know, implementing different ideas, you know, for your child, or you know, if you're okay with having that time away, that might be an option for you and your spouse. But at different times in your life, you might have to step back, and I think that's okay. Because at the end of the day, you know, an importance on career, it depends on what that means for you. You know, is it just making money? Is it about creating an image for yourself, contributing to society? And then you have to also think about what's important about raising your child, you know, yourself, you know, and what does that look like? What is the result of, you know, being away from the child for a certain amount of time? And then, you know, if your partner thinks the same way, how can you guys find compromise on trying to, you know, trying to manage those roles together? Because it's not fair for it to all be put on one person, right? One person shouldn't have to make these decisions and shouldn't have to always be sacrificing. In this day and age, you know, it's in most states, you do need two household incomes. So can there be a way in which one person is stepping back and for a bit, you know, for 1 year versus the other, you know, different jobs that allow remote work versus not. That's why I think it's a conversation that people need to be open to having. And, you know, they do it several times throughout the marriage, not just at the beginning, but come back to the table and be like, okay, this thing has changed. You know, our incomes are changing, or this new child is coming into the mix. Like, how are we going to try to create not necessarily 50-50, but something like that is a harmony, but both of us can live with, can you know, find peace with.
Absolutely.
Michelle Obama recently had a new book where she talks about her marriage with Barack Obama, and how it wasn't 50-50 all of the time. And that was okay. There were some years when she was doing 75% of the work, and that was okay with her. And that's a reality that a lot of, you know, Western women aren't talking about. But in Islam, we do, you know, we always put the focus back on our family. And I think that, you know, Muslim women can be reminded of that as well, that there is importance on the family, but it shouldn't always be on one person to increase that importance, right? To highlight that importance. It's two individuals coming together to make it work.
I think you raise an important point. It's obviously going to change over stages, and especially women, because they are sort of like, you know, as much as men are the providers of the house, they are the homemakers, and their influence on family and children is vital, especially at the very beginning of the child's upbringing. So as much as they have their careers, you know, they can discuss taking time out and, you know, giving time and going back and revisiting that if and when the child is in full-time sort of education. And, you know, even if they were to have a nanny, it's probably just like for a few hours until they get back home, for example, but not the complete entire day, and they don't have that input. So it is manageable. And I think that most people need to think of it as not as, you know, nothing or all, because there are compromises, like you said. And I think it's really, really important that we address this. And I think it's such a vital conversation, especially for what's happening today. And so many issues and problems. And we are coming into another break very shortly, but I just want to remind the viewers, you can come in and share your story, and you can remain anonymous. We'd love to hear your voices. And also, if you have any queries or questions as to whether or not you have an issue and you want myself or my guest to sort of like initiate any of sort of guidance for you, then you are most welcome to call in. The numbers are at the bottom of your screen, either directly to the studio or a WhatsApp message. The other thing is also, we're talking a lot about how women are in their careers, but we have the other side of it, which I'm going to ask you again when we come back, is what do men think about women who are expecting highly educated and professional men to marry? That's the other side of it. Okay, that's also a very high expectation, because they are meant to be these providers. So as much as these men don't want these career wives or educated women, then they need to also step up, because it has to come from somewhere. And again, that's a problem for a lot of women today, that are they expectations too high for marriage? But we'll see. We'll come back to that question after the break. And I'm really interested to know what Nyla thinks. And especially if you have any thoughts, please do share it with us. And we will be back in a few moments. Please do stay tuned, and we will see you in a few moments. Salam. Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. I'm absolutely loving this conversation, and it's so great to have an amazing guest with me tonight. I'm really enjoying your insights, Nyla. Look, we've actually, addressed the fact at the very beginning, the first half of the show, with regards to how men might find it problematic to have a potential wife who is career orientated, who wants to have this lifestyle where she might not be able to be in the house traditionally, looking after the children and being there for her husband and beck and call the way they want, which is fair enough. We have that perspective, and we said that can be discussed, and each case is different, obviously. And there is obviously the idea that, women also put a lot of pressure on themselves when they are career women, and they cannot really manage sometimes. So they do need to consider that, taking a step back and doing that. The other issue here, though, which I really want to address, let's turn it and switch it a little bit, is the fact that, okay, these traditional men want to be traditional and these providers, but unfortunately, in this kind of world, we do find that they are not financially able to, right? And women are complaining that where are these men who are the providers, right? Why are they not stepping up, whether it's in their career or education? And I've got more money, I've got more finance, I've got more prospects, I've got a better car, I've even got my own house, and they're still with their parents. Fine if you're like 20, 25, whatever. What about when you're like over 30, 35, and you're still in that position? So women are not actually happy with the potentials that are out there. And I'm generalizing, by the way. Actually, as we are talking, I do have a question that has come through, and I really want to read this before you answer that question as well. I'm just waiting for it to load. But anyway, while it loads, could you sort of maybe answer that for me as to why is it that we are finding these so-called traditional men who want to be these traditional men not able to actually fit the bill when it comes to actually being those providers and protectors, and Muslim women are finding it very difficult to find that match? What's your thoughts on that reason?
Yeah, I mean, I want to give them a break in some regard, and say that women, need to have realistic expectations, these days, because I have heard some, very strong, shocking things that women saying, like, oh, if he doesn't have XYZ fancy car, I can't consider him. Or, if he's not making over 150K, I'm not interested. Yeah, even though she herself is making good money, I don't think that that's an Islamic practice that we should, that it's not an Islamic practice, period, to judge someone based on how much money they're making or the materialistic wealth they have. So we need to.
Don't you find a lot of parents, though, are making those judgments even for their potential children? And that is also a problem. It's not even because they're quite happy. A lot of women may be happy to choose a spouse when they've fallen for them and say, oh, Mama, Baba, at the end of the day, I've fallen for him and her, whatever, and it's fine. But the parents are not accepting unless they have a really good status, bank balance, you name it. And that is a very, very prevalent in the Muslim community.
Yeah, I've written articles about, the meher, being from the parent side, saying, it needs to be 30K, it needs to be extremely high. I only bring me a doctor, only bring me an engineer, who has a house already. That's
Do
a
you not
really
think, though, sorry to interrupt you, do you not think that they are just trying to safeguard their children, their potential daughter, so that they are actually being taken care of? Because they actually come out of their household, right? And if they are going to be the ones that are being taken care of, they want to make sure that they're taken care of at a particular standard and level. Is that not something fair to even discuss and decide that, your potential husband has to at least give you what I'm giving you in my house, and I'm not there anymore, and you are completely under them? So shouldn't that be something, regardless, where you are taken care of in a particular way and you are not going to be struggling? And the meher is there for her safety, because if they even decide to choose to not work and have a career, right, it's only fair that they do have that as standing. That is, if that's going to be paid, that's another issue to discuss, by the way. Because at the end of it, it's all fair and nice at the beginning to say all of this. Oh, it's un-Islamic, this, that, and the other. But the reality is a lot of women are suffering out there because they did not claim a high meher. They did not actually have a career or any education. So when things do go bad, and this is not just not having trust in Allah, this is the reality of what's happening today, unfortunately, with a lot of women that I see, that they haven't pre-planned and they don't have a backup plan and they are left. So what is your thoughts on that?
That's 100% why women should get their education when they can, maybe even before they get married, so they have a backup plan, so that if the marriage doesn't work out, they're able to support themselves. I know women that once they got married, they were still in school, or they put off school, but they're able to go back and still get a degree, so that if their husband is no longer in the picture for whatever reason, they're able to provide for themselves. Women should be educating themselves financially about having their own retirement plans, having savings, being able to navigate the world financially on their own if the marriage doesn't work out, if they have to take care of their children on their own. So that's first and foremost. A woman always should protect herself. And then as far as a man having a job, there's a difference between not having a job at all and being a bum, and then having a job that makes six figures, right? I don't think any parent would, say that they're gonna and be, told that they're incorrect by an imam or whatever, if they're putting their daughter in the hands of someone who doesn't have a job, right? I mean, it's different if they're in grad school, they have potential, they're doing part-time jobs, right? That's one case scenario, but it's a different thing completely if they're not working, if they're going to rely on their own parents or on the woman. Those are different scenarios, but what we're talking about is really some people, the parents or the women themselves, having super high expectations of men, and these are, and in the Western context, these are men of color who are going up against the difficulties of being able to afford education, especially in the US, where education requires you to take out loans, involves riba. A lot of men, Muslim men, they don't want to deal with that, or maybe they're trying to help their immigrant parents, so they're not prioritizing being able to go to grad school and get that secondary degree to make the extra money. So we do have to think about these things when we're assessing the field, and when we're saying, like, yes, I'm not seeing a lot of men with secondary degrees, but maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe his character and his deen can make up for not having the six-figure lifestyle that I want. But that also goes back to why I even wanted to have this conversation about career. It's not even so much focusing on the career, but thinking about what's the lifestyle that you envision when you're married. What's the lifestyle of this potential person when you guys get married? Do your two lifestyles currently or in the future, are they going to blend well together? Like, are your expectations for what type of house you're living in, where you're sending your children to school, what's your travel lifestyle going to be like? Are those in line with your current and future salaries? And can you guys make it work together when you have less, or even in the future when you have more? How is it going to change? Career is a starting point to determine if you can make a marriage work based on lifestyle. And
Absolutely. I think it does depend on the social economic backgrounds of certain people, and they got to be realistic that when you are coming from a specific socioeconomic background, as much as we don't want to categorize and label certain people, but certain people might say, well, I don't want to marry, a doctor or a lawyer. Well, that doctor and lawyer wouldn't want to marry you because you don't come from that sort of educational background anyway. So that's not an opportunity for you in the first place, because doctors like to marry doctors, or a male doctor may not have a problem with someone who is of lower status and career if it's in that sort of way, because the genders does make a difference. So we do need to address this. We are talking and generalizing differently, and I think certain brackets are there. And when we're talking about this, then obviously men of a lower status, let's be real, they're not going to want higher performing women most of the time, so they stick to that socio-economic where you both can blend in that way. And unfortunately, that's how, maybe it may work for you. I mean, I wouldn't like to label it in that way, but that's where some people can actually maneuver. Now, we do have a dating question for you. It's completely off, so let's see if what's your thoughts on this. We have a anonymous question saying, my dating related question as a Muslim in the Western world countries such as UK and North America is, how could a Muslim guy ask a woman who is at work, such as she's at a coffee shop or a cafe, for her number? Should he give his number on paper? What is a cute way to ask without bothering her? Shoot your shot without coming off so needy and desperate or thirsty. Is there any way, Nyla? What's your thoughts on that? I mean, I do really find it so, I do sort of commend some men who are trying to be respectful, and sometimes they are judged. There's never a good or a respectful way sometimes with some women. So what would be your advice to this question?
I would say if you can go through a third party, that's always going to be the best. So even if it's a coworker, if someone that's a colleague between the two of you that you can confide in, saying like, hey, I am open to getting married. I see this, cute hijabi, this Muslim woman, and I'm interested in pursuing her for the purpose of marriage. Can you ask her if she'd be open to having my number passed along or sharing my social? I think that's probably the best way, most comfortable way, it is to go through that third party. But if not, I have myself have been, in the past was approached by men who just, messaged and said, hey, I know you're open to looking for prospects for marriage. I am too. Can we exchange and can we talk about if this could work? And sometimes that direct approach, while a little awkward, it's effective because you're setting your intentions. There's nothing wrong with being bold, as long as your intentions are aligned for a good purpose, which is marriage. So either way, it depends on if you're bold or if you want to go through the third party. I think, inshallah, both would be acceptable.
Yeah, no, that's really sound advice, actually. I think you really got to trust your gut in the situation as well and see how it is. Not every time there's an opportunity for you to wait. And if you do feel that you only got that one chance, if you are in a coffee shop and you're never going to meet them again, to be quite bold and manly and confident, and at the same time respectful, and be okay with also taking a no to begin with, but leave it out there for her to think about. And you don't need to expect an answer straight away, but for her to ponder. But yeah, I mean, not every woman likes to be approached, and some people may find it quite flattering, but I think the way you come across makes a huge difference, whether she's interested or not. You could go away feeling confident that you tried your best. And just like Nyla said, if you have the right intention, it will come out correctly. So I hope that really helps. And thank you so much for sending that question in. We are coming on to our final break. I can't believe the show has gone so quickly, but please do stay tuned as we do have more questions for our lovely guest, Nyla. And I hope you join us after the break, where we will be continuing our conversation and you can be part of it. Thank you so much so far for tuning in. Please stay with me and I will see you after the break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. We're at the final part of the episode. How amazing is this discussion? And yes, I do get really passionate because I speak for the voiceless. I have a lot of people come to me with their challenges, especially who watch the show. And, I hear many stories of what's happening on the ground. So I am speaking for those people who are not here tonight, and I'm asking questions on their behalf. So yes, I do play devil's advocate, and I will hopefully, enrage some people, but I'm really, really passionate about relationships and, building homes. And we're not here against men or women, or trying to be sort of like against anyone's, whether they make their own choices to be traditional men or career women's, whatever it may be. But we are having healthy conversations to address what is happening on the ground today. And inshallah, it's only there to help you to move forward with your potential spouse and to make it really, really successful. And that's why we have each week amazing guests like we do tonight with Nyla, who's all the way from North California, who's giving her time, who is a lawyer by day and a relationship writer by night. So what would be the healthy approaches when we are in our careers in order, especially as women, to move forward and to actually try and have some sort of balance? As you said, it's never going to be 50-50. How do we manage that? And, is there a way forward so that we can get some hope, thinking that, yes, we've educated ourselves, we've got a career, but we also want this wonderful family life and want to be there for our husband and our children. What are the healthy approaches to do that?
Yeah, so I think that career can be used to, like I said, assess lifestyles. And so instead of, completely writing someone off based on, if they're a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, or even if they, if they don't have a professional degree, just give them a chance and talk about to determine if you guys come together on similar things like religiosity. If you have values that are the same, if you have similar life goals. I think someone's career, it should be important to think about time commitment in a career. So if you are someone and you and your parents are determined to find that doctor, you need to really study how doctors' lifestyles are. If they're an emergency medical, ER doctor or a surgeon, they're going to be spending kind of, fewer hours at home at night, right? They might work overnight and they might, not come home for dinner. Are you going to be okay with that type of lifestyle? On another example, if someone is a PhD student, that's a really great track to go on. They could end up at teaching at a great university, educating the masses. But think about the years on the road to that PhD. You might, be the breadwinner part of the time. If they're not able to work full time because they're in their studies, think about how that it's going to affect the lifestyle choices that you guys have together. It doesn't mean that you can't consider them. It just means that you need to change your expectations about how the first few years or even maybe a decade of that marriage is going to go. I think marriage is all about compromise, and no one is going to be perfect. No career situation is going to be the best thing. But it's important to know that these things change. People get into different roles. They the wealth is always, our risk is never constant. It comes and goes at different times in our life. So thinking about if you're using career as a symbol of wealth, don't think that is something that is going to be constant or guaranteed just because they have a higher degree or not. Or even if they don't think that the person who is running their dad's gas station, that they're gonna be the ones that aren't gonna have two homes in their lifestyle. Oftentimes that small business owner is very successful, mashallah. So think about the different possibilities and give people a chance and be willing to compromise.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I really do also want to say, regardless of me talking generalizing about certain things, I know of many couples, especially husbands, who support their wives in their career as well as in their education, whether they are in their early stages of marriage and getting young married, where they they don't mind their wives, pursuing that career and pursuing that education, and even later on doing that while they're having children and compromising. I know plenty of families that do that. So it's not to say that it's impossible. We are talking of certain extreme cases here because it is something that people may not have experience of, but I have witnessed this, that many career men and women are living together in a very healthy, happy marriage. And like you said, there are different stages. I want to address something very quickly, actually, before we leave, which I just remembered as well. There are many women who might actually choose to stop working and have no career or job, especially after children. And sometimes they are frowned upon and looked down upon, especially by other women. It's not all the time, but there is a pressure also on women, especially by other women, to be somebody and do something. And if you're not, then again, it's an issue. Do you find that still exists?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm really happy we're addressing that point, because in the West, careerism is starting to become something that's poisoning us. Because a lot of people, they're focusing so much on the career that maybe they're starting their search for marriage later in life, and then they're realizing that they missed out on a lot of potentials, a lot of opportunities. Maybe even their window for having children is shrinking. And that's due to this idea that having an important career is the most important thing. And it's really unfortunate, because I do know women that, are looked down on because they don't share that ideal. So I had a friend that, she, mashallah, was able to get a master's in teaching, and didn't continue on, becoming a full-time teacher after graduation, because she wanted to focus on growing her family. And she told me that for a lot of that time between getting married and waiting to have children, or the process of trying to have children, like, she was looked down upon as, why aren't you pursuing your degree, or what your degree was obtained in? Why aren't you pursuing this career path? Like, what's wrong with you? And she's happy now, fast forward 4 years, happily, in being a stay-at-home mom. Like, that's what brings her joy. That's something that she wakes up happy to do every day. And the relationship she has with her husband is one of, he's the breadwinner and she's the homemaker, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's what someone wants. So that once again, I think it's not fair for us to write people off based on a career, or not having one, and to think about, can our values, can our life goals overlap? Like, is there commonality in that, and not in how much money we make or how many degrees we have?
Absolutely. I think there's definitely a pressure amongst women, especially in the West. And I do hear a lot of stories as well, as to so many women have put off their marriage because of education and career. And now, years later, are very, very unhappy and unfulfilled because they're not finding that spouse, because people that came before are not coming anymore, and they thought it would continue. So when you have that opportunity, it doesn't disrupt your career if it's the right one. It does not disrupt your education if you ask the right questions and you meet the potential spouse that is for you. So please do take care when you're making these decisions, because it can hinder in your future very, very detrimentally, especially when I know so many women now over 30s are very high flyers, but they're still very unhappy because they have lost those opportunities. I know that some people have tried and the opportunities have not come to them, but I'm talking about the ones that have deliberately said no because they thought it would take away from that. I just also want to say thank you so much for being with us today. We don't have much time, but before we do get to the end, I do want to ask you now, in case I forget, as to how do people reach you? Because obviously your work is so interesting and you've got such a phenomenal sense of experience and background, and your writing, just hearing about it makes me want to, look and search you up and read about all the things that you've written. So please do share. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so my IG handle at Nailadeen28, everything is on there. My link tree, it's all my writings on there. Also on my website, SingleMuslim.com. And hoping to connect with as many people as I can. Reach out to me, DM me. I'm happy to connect further.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And we have about a minute left, so I'd love to leave those final words before we end for yourself, Nyla, for anyone who's watching on this particular topic, or anything that you want to share as a last sort of like comment before we actually end the show.
Yeah, I would say, this idea of career leading your search in love, for love and marriage, it should be, you should first and foremost think about what career means to you, what it means to your family, what it means to your ethnic and cultural identities, and then go backwards and ask why, is this something that we should be prioritizing in this way? Are there other possibilities here? Because I can imagine it must be hard for those children that are now ready to get married, that who've grown up with this idea of, I have to marry this person in this type of degree. I can't do anything less, or even I can't get married until I have reached my potential career, until I'm that practicing lawyer, until I'm, have written, 5 books. I think those types of pressures that we put on ourselves are unfair. I think that, you can have a marriage and continue on your path to success, or whatever that looks like for you in terms of making money or making a name for yourself. It doesn't have to be one or the other. We're really, we're really disillusioned these days in terms of thinking that we have to make one choice versus the other. And if we prioritize our faith and search as to what our purpose is, and being good Muslims, I think that we can help to ourselves answer that question of,
Amazing.
at
Thank
what
you.
time I can do that.
Thank you so much. We have come, unfortunately, to the end of the show. And I want to say thank you from all of us here on British Muslim TV and myself, that, it's been an absolute delight. Really, really pleasure to have you on the show. And thank you so much. And we bless you and hope you continue with your work in your day and night job. So thank you so much for joining me, Nyla. And thank you everyone for watching, everyone participating, and your questions and queries. We really do appreciate it. And inshallah, we will see you this time next week with another guest and topic. We look forward to seeing you then. Have an amazing night. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.